I think we're about to start. Okay. How's it? Oh man, okay, let's bring this closer. Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. There's so much to get through and there's so much to say, and I cannot find any words in English or Kasesotho or in any other language or any tongue that I am fluent in or semi-fluent in, just to talk about how good it is just to be up here with my love and my peer.
Like, I just feel like the people in the audience today are just equally as much going to like love on us and troll us. So I'm just going to embrace that.
Exactly. So this conversation up close with Maneo, also it just sounds so like, yes, and it should sound like that because I am a slut very much so, but it's like, and it's going to be a very slutty conversation as well. But yeah, just to how rare and what a wonderful treat it is that we have such a talkative and intertextual body of work, and so many of our babies came as a result of we've realized, we were just having this conversation, that we've known each other for almost a decade, close to 9 years this year, 10 years next year, which is amazing. So yeah, I just want this conversation to be a meander through our work, and also a meander through our careers, maybe, which is a scary word, but fine. Our careers, yes. And also just the actual work, and the whole principle of being up close is just seeing the poetry and touching the poetry and hearing the poetry. So yeah, we're gonna go through a bit of a journey. How the structure of this conversation came about is I was eating grapes in Joburg and thinking how to do this, and I was like, okay, well, whatever, every single section, it starts with the G because, and we'll just move through that. So the first section is called Greet. And the first thing that I think that we wanted to move through is, or the question that we wanted to explore is, if our poems were people, would they be friends, firstly? Do you think so?
I mean, based on you and I,
But I mean, there is a difference, or there is a bit of a separation between the poetry and the poet, and sometimes I feel like our work has unruly lives and independent lives and thoughts of ourselves. But I asked Koleka the question, if our poems were to be friends, which poem would she choose to greet me or to greet mine, and which poem I would use, or poems I would use to greet. And I picked Letsatsi, which opens my book, and another poem called Midheaven, which also kind of feels like it's talking very directly to one of your poems, Choices Sorted, and an earlier poem that you wrote in Collective Amnesia called Reincarnation. We have a very fancy clicker, and it might not work, but I mean, it'll be great. It will. Okay. Yes. Amazing. Yeah. Okay.
They gave this remote to the wrong people.
And I mean, it has a little laser also, so it's really going to be very fun. But yeah, do you want our poems just to greet one another?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think I want you to start.
Okay.
Because
hello, everybody. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us. Okay.
This is also just mine. Okay, here we go. I think it's Choices Sorted first, but I think I'll leave Choices Sorted up here and then you'll just read Reincarnation.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start with Reincarnation. I thought that us knowing each other for so long, there's still so much to know, to discover, but also I am also finding myself in a place where I'm trying to deconstruct and take apart and put back together the meaning of what it means to belong to places, to people, to things, to memories. Hence, I thought about these two poems. The one thinks about what it means to like where you come from, on you without your like having like there's nothing you can do about the way that you look and who you resemble and what that means. And then choice assorted, just sometimes like the memory of where we come from. Sometimes the older you get, it kind of feels like it's graying out and you're trying desperately to piece together things from memory, from stories, from other things. So I thought I'd greet you with these two and see where it takes us. Reincarnation. The mirror spits your grandmother back at you, her determined eyes, her machete mouth, her howling courage. You are third generation Messiah.
I really love that poem. How many years is between, how many years are between reincarnation and choice assorted?
Reincarnation is 2016, 2017. And Choice Assorted is actually in the new collection, which is for teens and young adults. And that was released this year. So what is that? My maths is not good.
It's fine. 8 years?
Yeah. So okay. a bit of time. But also written with different desires in mind. I think that most of the poems in this collection are like love letters and little prompts to the reader, and asking them to think about like what the box of Choice Assorted would look like and what it would have inside. But yeah, let me read it.
Let's hear
actually.
It.
I search unmarked doors to locate where I come from. History is already there when I arrive. I come from photographs, neatly tucked away and brought out to show visitors. I come from curfews marked by sunsets. I come from long road trips with finger-licking good in the back seat, singing and bopping along to bumps and humps. Things were always smoother in stillness. I come from Auntie So-and-so's sugar and milk that were never in shortage, choice assorted biscuits and fireworks reserved for special occasions. We were the special occasion. Where I come from, everyone is your cousin. Uncles gambled with things they were afraid to lose. Mothers took care of things they loved. Prophets wore shiny shoes and held your gaze for too long. Neighbors greeted in high-pitched voices and fed everyone playing in their yard. Grandmothers neatly folded and tucked plastic bags in the bottom drawer. Grandfathers read philosophy books and cooked spicy food after midnight. Tin cans clapped in percussion, feet jumped rope, rhythm in an endless loop. Joy was here, and joy was next door. It said, good morning, and it made sure to always say, good night.
Thank you. Okay, I guess this is my turn. I'm trying to move everything back, God. Oh, Lord. One more. Okay, here we go. I picked this one because, actually, I'll speak it and then we'll speak.
I love this poem, by the way.
It loves you too. In your mother's red Golf, you ask her what Benoni means. Son of my sorrow. Hearing the sun instead, you turn the word over in your mind like a coin. Ghosts are living in mine dumps as your mother drives you home. Honeycomb mountains are brittle. Tomorrow, you ask her for a crunchy after school. Like all names of the Bible, Benoni sounds ancient. Out your mother's mouth, magic. Menjik. Magic. You were still small enough to hide inside the good book's rice paper pages. You do not know yet what you are. Have not had Leviticus angled at you like an ice pick. For now, the Bible is a hand drum for women draped in white and blue. Kokatlehong in a pockmarked garage, there are women made of clouds and ocean. They make terrifying sea-wide music. Skupu, the plastic bottom of everything that has a heart. Shells and bottle tops on ankles. How neatly old and new gods sit together. In school, you meet a man named Cecil John and learn the word pioneer. Turn the word over in your mind like a coin. Your mother is a witness. Your mother is a pioneer, not yet knocking on doors to tell people about the good news. You wonder if Cecil was a witness too. Wonder on whose doors he knocked, for which God, to spread what good news.
Wild.
And then to answer my own question, between Letsatsi and Midheaven, Letsatsi was written in 2018 and Midheaven was written in 2021. I'm also bad at maths. Okay. I'm nervous. Okay. This is Midheaven Paternoster. Let a good story begin with palms, double thundered in meeting, double folded in twin greeting again. Let the buds whisper, here again. Give me lilt and lyre, call attention, soft fur and fire buzz, creatures of electric air. As the elder griot bows, agree now in bronze grass, agree now that you are human. Unrelenting, unribboning song was sung that brought me to him. In this lifetime, he finds me velvet-backed, nestled near a narrow haunt, sunned by red light, having remade myself. Boy, neon, unthroated. There's he, shadowy stood little Orpheus, all a sniff flyless. We look good in cosmic time. I think there's another one. Oh God, oh God. I'm going to leave this.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave this.
Rather.
Yeah, honestly. Graft will be spots of starlight storming, connected in Cassandra red conspiracy thread, all constellation-like. On Wiki's authority, muses carried his strings to heaven, placed in dappled blackness, star ash. Across a field of violets, exactly 2 forevers ago, he finally tells me to hush. Just pucker your lips, honey. Pray. Okay. Heels in the moss then as greeting. My matter, who is midheaven, handful of thy mane, thy shore denied, thy quantum eyed, on earth as exiled from heaven. Teach us to crave our daily bread, and give us our sin, as we forget those that sin against us. Steer us not out of temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
I think that when you ask, like, if our poems would be friends, I also just think about the ways that similar references kind of dance in our poems, or the ways that we dance with the ways that we've been raised and how we've been raised. And in that sense, it's not the same language, but I think that they speak similar tongues in a way, and that makes them familiar with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like how we reappropriate biblical language. And I think that blasphemy, is it fair to say that blasphemy is a tool for us both? Not in a sense of trying to find the profane and rule it out or stretch it out in a kind of obscene texture, but to speak against holy text and to reappropriate holy text, which is blasphemous. Would you say?
I think
Are you a blasphemer?
Yes.
I knew it.
No. But this word, like blasphemous, like I don't know how I feel about it. Because sometimes I think that when you are somebody who is curious and questioning by nature, particularly for those of us like who were raised in certain religious households. The word blasphemous is often like thrown in there as a way to sort of stop the questioning in a way, or block it somehow. So yes, at times blasphemous, but I think that I would substitute the word blasphemous with questioning and curious and wandering. I think I'm a wanderer, you know, I'm just like, whenever someone's like, don't look there, I'm like, what's there? If people are like, don't touch, I'm like, why? I want to know, you know? And so I think for people who are precious and strict about do's and don'ts, when you defy those things, it can seem or appears of you being blasphemous, but you're just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that flows really beautifully into the next G, which is graze. And I was asking you in preparation for this what you've been grazing on. I think we're both quite omnivorous readers, and we kind of pick and choose and eat from wherever we find. And as poetry writers, as poets, I don't think we just eat poetry, but I wanted to ask you about your reading practice. What have you been grazing on lately?
A lot of things. When you asked me this question, I was like, oh my gosh, like how do I even try to put this in a thing that's understandable? I think in the last couple of years, I've become like a collector that doesn't really finish any one collection at all. Like I'll start a collection and then I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of also the way that I approach like my daily life. Like I'll start cleaning the kitchen and then I'll be like, oh, what's that? And then I'll start doing something else. And I think I kind of like read or like practice reading in the same way. And I actually have to discipline myself. Sometimes discipline's a bit harsh, but I think I have to sort of romance myself into being more structured. But I've been collecting different things. I was telling you that I've been collecting this random like pieces of literature that center or reference or use animals as the protagonist, or as a way for the protagonist in the story to make sense of their world or make sense of what's happening. But I've been collecting this body of work where writers have been using animals to think through and deal with grief. A few years ago, a friend of mine, actually another poet, Tony Stewart, gifted me with this book called Grief is a Thing with Feathers
Max Porter.
Max Porter's Grief is a Thing with Feathers. And then someone stole it.
As it happens when it happens.
Okay, I don't think they stole it. I think we were getting lit. We were drinking at my house.
Fine.
And in like true fashion, I was like, take this. And then the next morning I woke up, I was like, someone took my book. And it's like, no, girl, you were litty. And then I ordered 2 more copies, one to gift to a friend and then the other one to just leave on my shelf. But actually how this collection started, I was on a Zoom call. I can't remember what the Zoom call was about. It was like a talk about something. And one of the speakers in the Zoom call was talking about the ecological functions and how non-human elements work in Ben Okri and Chinua Achebe's works. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It would be interesting to think about collecting works where non-human elements sort of like drive the narrative or help the humans in the story grapple with everything. So I started collecting these things and reading literature around like horses and birds, particularly birds. So many writers are writing about birds and how they use birds to deal with grief. I was also telling you that I haven't read it yet, but I picked up H is for Hawk by Helen MacDonald, who buys this goshawk after her father passes away, and essentially lives with it and trains it, and buys all of this goshawk meat and stuffs her fridge with all of this meat. And in living with this goshawk, she begins to grapple with her grief. So that's what I'm kind of like slowly grazing on, or trying to graze on, plant work as well. Like so many writers and authors are apparently like avid gardeners and plant people. And so that's fascinating to me, how people who write are also people who love to tend to the earth, or attend to the earth and be with their hands and growing things in a tangible way, and then also what that does to the writing. So I've been grazing on that and just making my way and seeing what are people up to and what are the plants saying and what are the birds saying.
Yeah.
And
I really love that as a practice. I think it also just exits this weird human but also body consciousness and this intense sort of anthropomorphic thing that sometimes we get so locked into human experiences. I've been grazing and putting them all into this really obsessive table called The Waking. When I was putting together Everything is a Deathly Flower, I put together a table called The Sleeping, and it was 51 little like entries of just things, I think, that eventually became poems. But I think for this next book, which is very much about Eros and the body, and about love, I suppose, but also about gender. It's called Boy Bride. And I'm eating a lot of philosophy. I'm eating a lot of sort of political theory, a lot of poetry, and a lot of just, it always feels very disparate and very scattered when you're trying to prepare for a next book, but I think it's been nice just to stick it all inside of like a table so that I can see it. Frankie also was really funny because it was like, I sent her a link for it, and she was like, wouldn't it be wonderful if we just made it available for everyone? And I'm like, I have a whole column of just my kinks like on the side. So if we could like somehow veil one just of an extensive link just of intense kinks of mine, it would be great. I would love to share that, just maybe not that part as much. Flowing into that, the next G is grounding. And I think this is probably, we can get back into this.
Wait, I actually want to, I want to tell on you.
Oh, fuck.
So when we were prepping for this, Maneo sends me, is it a spreadsheet?
Yes, The Waking.
Goodness. Like organized into colors, into categories, into like, I said, babe, like, I feel some type of way. I feel like, what is this? And you're like, oh, no, it's just stuff I've been grazing on for the last couple of years. You know, I've organized it for myself. That is like some professional shit.
Thank you.
Like,
I mean,
it's
I have to
amazing.
see it. A lot of it is like, I was reading Anti-Oedipus for a really long time and had to make sense of just like French political theory as well, and being like, okay, but also grazing on like vinyls. So there's like a section for vinyls, and there's a section for like flowers that I really love, but I call them by their government names, by their Latin names as well, which has been really fun.
And film and like choreographers. It was just like so nice to see that your practice is also informed by so many different kinds of disciplines. I was just like, okay, this makes sense.
Thanks for telling on me. Yes. I'm very nerdy in my practice and very nerdy in my reading practice. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's very important to have something like Garth Greenwald calls historical density in my work, where you feel like it's a layer, but there's a layer underneath that and a layer underneath that. I want my work to be really, really dense.
And sometimes it's like, and sometimes it's one part of the layer doesn't really come to surface until like much later on. And that's also always interesting to see how, I think it was like Sadia Hartman who said, she got to a point where she started to realize that actually like all your life you're kind of making work about the same thing. It's just, it looks different, it may come in different ways, but it's all sort of circling back to the thing that you're trying to get at. And I think that sometimes that layering, a part of the layer comes undone much later on to show you that, oh, I'm still part of this dance party pack that you made 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I think the question that I've been circling around more and more is embodiment, and how that kind of hooks up to gender, what it feels like to be perceived in a very particular kind of way, but also to play into that. I enjoy my femness, I enjoy being femme, but also I love being a boy who's a girl, who's a boy, who's a girl, who's a boy sometimes, who's a girl sometimes. And it's nice to kind of play at that, but also to hook that up into text and to explore that into text has been really, really fun to do. Really fun, yeah. Can I go to the next G now? Yes. Okay. The next G is grounding. I think I was asking you about things that have grounded you and poems that have grounded you. So much about, I would even say the last 3 years has been so incredibly destabilizing, and witnessing intensifying fascisms at home and abroad, and I've been trying to figure out what it means to be a poet on a burning planet, what it means to be a poet and a lover on a burning and a warring planet, and looking for work in light with that. And I love that Diane Seuss is at least up there, so at least I can read it. But this poem has been really grounding for me, and I think has, put the punctuation mark on a lot of what I've been thinking about, especially around embodiment, around sexuality and eros, around blackness, around, also interestingly, I've been really getting back into my punk roots. So it's been fun to also encounter a poet who has a long, extensive life in New York, being a punk at a particular point. But I love this sonnet, and it comes from a collection called Frank Sonnets. And this is Intimacy Unhinged, Unpaddocked Me. I really love this.
Do you want to go since it's up there?
I think
you're also like one of the very few people who will like hoy in a sentence going back to my punk roots. Like it's normal.
It is normal.
Just casually going back to my punk roots.
It's deeply normal. But anyway, I love this sonnet, and maybe we can talk about it also and what you chose to. Intimacy unhinged, unpaddocked me. I didn't want it. Believe me, I didn't want it anymore. Who in their right mind? And then it came like an ice cream truck with its weird tinkling music, its sweet frost. I fled to the shore and saw how death strewn all the body parts washed up and sucked clean like that floor mosaic by Sosis of Pergamon, unswept house. Seabirds flocked and dematerialized like they do. Bees raged at their own dethroning. Love came close anyway, found me out. Its warped music all the rage. It had a way, just by being in proximity, of opening the shelves of the bivalves, disclosing their secret meat. One doesn't really suck on frozen sugar water. One allows it to melt in the oven of the mouth. Oh, everything about that. But specifically, like, whatever. But specifically, melting in the oven of the mouth.
But also, she's also just flexing on her waking as well. You know, like paintings in there. You know,
sis.
Like we're going into the sea in there. You know, it's like I just love it when a poet or a writer just shows you that, like,
I know
some
things.
shit.
I know things. I've
I
been
know
knowing
some
shit.
shit.
I've been knowing. And also the two unwords, like intimacy, unhinged, unpaddocked, and so much about, at least I'm finding, about love and sex and sexuality and queerness and all the really good stuff, has been an unmaking and an undoing and an unraveling and an unbuttoning of myself. It's been really hot that way. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about tell me about the one that you chose. Could we get the next slide? I'm done. I'm done with the remote. I think it should be away from me. Yeah. Thank you.
I won't read all of it, but when you asked me about grounding, I've been sitting with this poem for a while. As someone who, I don't know, I feel like I spend a lot of my existence in pursuit of something. And I think that just comes, it's part of the territory of making stuff, of being like somebody who makes and who puts a lot of their energy into growing things and making things and sitting with things and being in rehearsal and various kinds of process, whether that is like writing a book and having to edit over time, or making a play and having to come back into rehearsals with yourself or with actors and other people. But just the act of the audacity of making and showing up to make something comes with a lot of things. And so I've been sitting with this poem by Mahogany L. Brown. I won't read all of it. But this is a grounding poem for me. This is the honey. There is no room on this planet for anything less than a miracle. We gather here today to revel in the rebellion of a silent tongue. Every day, we lean forward into the light of our brightest designs and cherish the sun. Praise our hands and throats, each incantation, a jubilee of people dreaming wildly, despite the dirt beneath our feet or the wind pushing against our greatest efforts.
I also really, I've been thinking hard about indentation and like formatting intensely. And one of my mentors, Juliana Kopitek, told me that it's really good to write poems that resist the left margin, that try and move, and that there is a that there is a level of response, I think, in us when we encounter lines that drift a little. And I love this. Every day we lean forward into the light of our brightest designs and cherish the sun. Praise our hands and throats, each incantation a jubilee of a people dreaming wildly. But like I love the little nudge this way, because it adds attention, but something about the left margin. Have you been playing around with form lately too?
I have, but I think I've been trying to learn form more than I think I've been like what's the word I'm looking, intuitively playing with form without understanding all of the little things that I am doing. And I think that just comes with not having gone to school for something, and just having a gift that you then realize, okay, you can only go so far with that, and at some point you have to teach yourself certain things. So I think I've been trying to learn form lately, actually, and learning it from in very weird ways. Like I just actually came back in May. I went to a translation workshop, an Afrikaans translation workshop.
Hot.
I mean, wild.
Hot.
It was a translation workshop of a dear friend whose work that I love, Jolene Phillips, for those of you who are familiar with her work.
Deeply.
It's amazing. And that workshop was something that I think like it's one of those things that the universe has kind of sent my way. in seeing my desire to learn more. And it was wild. It was a week, and there were like different people in the room. Ankie Kroch was in the room, Rustam was in the room, and it was just Ronaldo was in the room. It was just different people having a conversation. And the whole week I was like, what the fuck are these people? Like sometimes I was just like, what are they on about? Just going into like naming the different forms that you can work in.
Like a
and
thick analytic.
Yeah, and also just learning. I think that having written intuitively for so long, and showing up in spaces like this where I have to talk about the work, I didn't realize how exhausting it was to just rely on that intuitive way of working. And it was actually and it was actually in this workshop where Jolyn actually taught me so much about how working in form and understanding the form that you're working in can really anchor you and be the thing that goes ahead of you, where you don't have to do so much of the work. You just let the work and the form do the work, and you just you don't have to kind of keep performing this like over explaining of like what the work means and where it comes from and why you wrote it in the first place. But you can actually get into like the nitty-gritties of like what the lines are doing and what the metaphors are doing. So yeah, I think I'm in the space of learning. How are you with that?
Oh, I've always been really nerdy when it comes to form. Like I really love learning about new forms. Like the most interesting for me now has been working with sestinas, and I love kind of playing the little word game of six. I really do. I really do love a sestina, and I hope I'm going to read one now. But just before we talk a little bit more about form, I thought it would be nice to give our wonderful people an opportunity to ask us a question while I look for more things. But what is a... Okay, so, yes.
Welcome to Maneo's Literary 101.
A sestina is a really cool form of poem, one of the oldest, and I believe Italian, but who cares? I really, you take 6 words, any 6 words that you really like, and the rule is that you have to shuffle them around in a very specific sort of way from stanza to stanza. Each stanza has 6 lines, and your 6 words have to end each one of your lines. So if your word, for example, is exit, and your first line has to be, I'm looking for the exit, and then the next line or the next stanza, exit. So you're doing like a little shuffly dance again and again and again and again and again and again. And what I love about the sestina in terms of its structure is that I'm particularly evasive, just generally as a person, and a little bit quite like secretive, generally as a person, and I really love the opportunity that the sestina gives you to waffle, because you start out and you're like, yeah, there's like, this is what I'm talking about, but then the circle gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and by the time that you get to your last sort of, the rules say that you have to get to kind of 3 lines, 3 of the ending, okay, whatever, the 3 lines, that you're right in the center. And I love the form because it gets me to think about what it is that I'm actually writing about, that I waffle first, and then by the end, I'm like, oh, this is what the poem is about. I'll read you one of them so that it makes a little bit more sense. But before that, does anyone have another question that isn't particularly about sestinas? I'm terrible at explaining. Can we get a mic to this person? And then our wonderful tech crew, could we move the finicky slideshow to Beg? I think if Beg is up there. Keep it moving, keep it moving. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Keep it. Move it. Keep it going. Yes, yes. Nope. Keep it going. Where keep it? Oh, there it is. But you won't be able to see that much, but I'll read it. I'll read it to you. Can we get the question?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
I love because
sweet.
we always say I love your work, and I find that very alienating. I love you because you're
That's sweet.
there's something that you were going to discuss, but I think I wanted to ask, like, y'all write about very deep and serious things, like very gut-wrenching stuff sometimes.
Yeah,
you know?
that too.
How do you create space to care for yourselves? Like,
Oh, that's such a great question.
how do you create space for yourselves to, I don't know, yeah.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful and a great question. Yes, go ahead.
I think we were actually talking about this before everyone came in, about just spiritual practices that you and I are trying to find or go back to or get into. For me at the moment, I think I'm just trying to go back to basics, honestly. I think just trying to go back to basics as a way to take care of self, just what is the ritual that you have in the morning for just starting the day, for example, and not thinking of taking care of self as this big task or exercise. And just trusting that going back to those basics is going to take care of the space that you work in and how you cultivate that space, or for myself anyway. I think I'm trying to parent myself all over again. And just trying to teach myself basics. Like you can't have cheese curls in the morning, like you actually have to have breakfast, Like you can't try and not grab your phone first thing in the morning, like try and remember what you dreamt about. Just like basics, and I think sometimes we take the basics for granted, but they kind of inform everything else. That's me anyway.
Yeah, for me, I had to learn by fucking up a bit. When I wrote Everything is a Deathly Flower, I had an action plan. I was in therapy. Things were beautiful. I was like, yes. I was also quite terrified at the time because my first book is quite explicitly a book navigating or charting a road out of trauma, but specifically like queer sexual assault. But I had to learn how to create a difference, because there wasn't a difference at the time, how to create a difference between the work that I do and the person that I am. And just because I draw from the well of my own experience, it doesn't necessarily mean that my body has to be a well. And I started thinking about myself extractively, and it sucked a lot, and it hurt me a lot. And I think now it's about finding my body. But I wanted to read you something that also helped ground me in this specific exercise, by one of my favorite poets. Their name is C.A. Conrad. They're a fantastic trans poet, and they write, "I am a woman, I am a man. I will be neither, or bits and parts of both, with blood and imagination, and they flow and the increase, and that increase is a prodigious stream tempering the spirit. Today, tomorrow, again against the wall, up a wall, over the wall, away from the wall. The world as it could be, or a collective version of it, is always trying to bend the air around itself to be heard. The risks of the day are holding themselves out to us, yet we all know too well that the power structure is far ahead of us, the ambush of the ages. I cannot stress enough how much this mechanistic world, as it becomes more and more efficient, resulting in ever-increasing brutality, has required me to find my body, to find my planet, in order to find my poetry." Yeah. Let me read you my Sestina. It's kind of horny.
Do you wanna? Is this big?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, love. Okay. This is a Sestina that I wrote for a dom. Oh, yeah. Why am I nervous? Oh, God. Okay. Once, Okay, wait, before I do. Here are my words so that you can listen out for them. So the 6 words that I chose were blossom, every there, which I made up, myself, past, tongue, and yes. Whoosh, okay. Listen for them. They're all over the place. This is big. Once ago, I swallowed a blood blossom and inked myself a love, dipped in revelry. Every there we puffed like owls, brick-backed as this new song of myself, unharmonied and honeyed as the past. If I gave it to you, where would you tuck my tongue? From the maybe vista of your pocket, teach it to say yes. Twice, teach it to say doubly, please, yes. Ignore my shyness. This dance is double blossom spun. Does shame govern me? Yes. Send your tongue to me regardless to be a poem. There, let hunger be tethered as an anchor passed between the triptych shadows of myself, 3-paned and bright. Let me sing myself, tongued into your mouth. Let every song say yes to you. Soaked as I am in the past, I've been known to write a blossom into blood blooming, yet every there, in the nation of my mind, the ray of your tongue forges me open, pens me anew. Tongued in a new language, blood beats itself bruised, rushing to you, delicious as wine. Words shed their skins quickly when you talk, when you say yes. Cities of doubt crumble into blossoms. Love light, I am trying to talk to you, but the past is a gag, slick with sometimes silence, passed down, hereditary. History sucks as a segue. Is not the corridor of blossoms we were promised in school? Consoling ourselves with white pages and lunchboxes sealed in promise? Yes. Our mothers will never know us like this. There is no country safe enough for this word. There could never be. Who could ever defend the border of the past? Please, let me be a river of yes, a prayer in black tongue, an ocean of myself, a many-bladed blossom. Make me a tongue, show me myself, flesh gated by teeth and promises, bright as blood.
I think that there was a question in the audience, or do you want to move on?
I think another question would be nice.
Or we can just yap.
Yeah, also, and
Yeah.
I promise you, we don't bite, we just nibble.
Hi. What would your recommendations be for a new person coming into poetry? South African, let's say 30s, brown person starting to come into poetry, thinking about poetry as a mechanism for growth, for healing, for grieving, and just for everything that's going on in the world now. What should we be reading?
Oof.
Woof,
Oof.
woof.
It depends what you're into, but maybe if you trying to start or like scratch at something, I think like a poetry anthology that has different voices in it could be a great like taster.
A really nice one is Dr. Wamboimbao, put together an anthology of many voices collecting voices over 30 years. And it's called Songs of Fire and Ash, Songs of Decolonization. Really, really good.
There's
Just
also
really good.
there's also the Soul Plaiki
EU ones,
yeah.
really fantastic.
What else? I think anthologies are great because there you have different people in it. New contrast is also something to get into. You'll find other genres in there, but I think that that's okay. Yeah.
Also to like trust your appetite.
Yeah.
And also to honor your appetite. You're hungry for the things that you're hungry for because you're hungry for them. And I think what's been really wonderful, at least when putting together this really crazy sheet over the last couple of years that I've been doing it, is just following curiosity and not judging myself for the things that I'm curious about. Because sometimes I would, to be like, oh, this isn't going to help you. Or the series that you've been binging for a month and a half isn't good for you. It's not necessarily, you can't call this research work. But then later it shows up in really weird ways. So trust your appetite, trust your intuition, and eat as much as you can. Yeah.
I would say read everybody in this room. First of all, I have to. Spogazi just came out with a collection, When Weeping Becomes a River. You can read that because Spogazi is a genius.
Honestly.
There's also a phenomenal collection of poetry, an epic of note called Mine, Mine, Mine.
By Uhuru Palafala.
There's also Zizi Popam's work that you can read.
It's fantastic.
Everybody.
Yeah. And also, there's so many of us that are making really, really beautiful work. And I think there's been an explosion, and it's been delicious just to see all the different kinds of voices. And also just like the great privilege that so many of these incredible poets are loves and friends. So really lovely too. Yeah. Okay. I think we are moving very quickly. Yeah, do you know the time?
Stop.
You see. But I thought it would be nice just to gush, just to give us a little opportunity to gush about anything, about each other, because I know I will be able to gush about you for at least half an hour, another extra half an hour, but just to, anything that you want to gush about, which is also a G word, I want to say.
I mean, I think that we are pressed for time. But when I was reading this, okay, I have to read you this. Sorry.
Don't ever apologize.
Trying to avoid. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
It's such a terrible habit.
Stop.
And I almost said sorry for saying sorry. But we learn. I took a photo of this. I was reading Maneo, some of Maneo's poems this morning. And one of the poems ends, I'm unskilled in departure after injury. I'd rather leave the door ajar than evict. Let yourself out. I was like, damn. I almost threw the book on the floor after that. I was like, how dare you?
Okay, that's my Dahlia. I want to read you my Dahlia. And then I want to talk about one thing that I want to get, as I'm so mad at you for. And it's in Hello Bye-Bye, because we haven't even talked about Hello Bye-Bye. But I'll get there. But let me read Dahlia and this line that you love so much. But this poem is about the last time I saw my abuser. And it's also a weird play on words for many things. It's called Dahlia because one of my favorite writers is Franz Kafka. He's a sad boy. And the last time I saw my abuser was in a cafe called Kafka Cafe in Vancouver. So, layers. This is Dahlia, and it opens up with an epigraph from Kafka. Like the cogency of the air after a thunderstorm, my qualities appear before me and overwhelm me, though I may not put up much of a fight against them. Under this light, the pavement breathes. Nothing but fishes and cement and the shrubbed conversations of weeds beneath me. I'm pleased by my body's ample. These hips, a brown pendulum, the very last time we speak, we meet at Kafka Cafe. The broad scent of coffee. Kafka is peopled with Vancouver's bespectacled offcuts dressed in black. I'm unskilled in departure. After injury, I'd rather leave the door ajar than evict. Let yourself out. Your parting shot. They'll leave you too once they see. It'll happen again, you know. I know. Okay, let's talk about you. Adjust yourself.
Yes.
This book is also such a wonderful gift because how it even came to be was because of us, like this strange relationship that we have. You came to me with a bunch of poems and you were like, I'm thinking about something and these things want to be something. And I said, yeah, okay, fine, let's sit down, let's get systematic about things. And I think I bullied you into like a mini grad school sort of like program. And then what ended up happening was this book.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. That's why like, I do feel like the way that I've learned how to write is with or through my peers. I feel like my peers have really taught me how to read and read deeply. That was certainly the process with you with this book, which actually I think is it's weird. I could talk a lot about how this second collection came to be. I think it was so weird how it came into the world. When you and I started, I didn't even know if it was going to be published or not because I didn't even have the money to publish it. And then funny enough, CNA came along and they were like, we're trying to do this new thing with the store. And they made the publication possible, but then like a few months later, CNA closed down. And I was like, well, I'm not even gonna question God at this point. It's okay. The book's here, that's what matters. But yeah, it was this book was written during COVID and after COVID, and just trying to make sense of, I was so incredibly lucky and blessed to have been able to move around different parts of the world with collective amnesia. But then I think when COVID happened, I started to process what those different spaces and being a poet in those spaces did to me psychologically, spiritually. And I was like, there's no way I'm the first. There's no way that other people in performance who have had to do this negotiation with performance being looked at, I can't be the only one going through that. And so all the epigraphs in this collection are an acknowledgement of a lot of women, Black women, who have had to do different negotiations with performance, with being looked at. And so it when you put me through that grad school, it was also about just trying to find who else and what are they saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to read one epigraph and then I'm going to ask you to read a poem and then I'm going to gush about it.
Okay.
Or do you want me to read
Wait, what poem is
your
it
poem
first?
to you? No, it's not, I promise. It's You Who Are Monumented.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's
you
fine.
see, I picked a safe one. But the epigraph that I can't stop thinking about, you grab from a YouTube video of Brenda Fassie talking, and she says, "I know how to sing, I know how to make people happy, and I'm very much of people's property. But most of all, I'm grateful to the media for making me famous. As much as I know, they're gonna break me. And I'd like to tell you that I'm yours. So do anything you want to do with me. It's okay."
My favorite epigraph from here.
It's what? Is that Amaata?
It's not the Amaata
Okay, fine.
one. It's the
Whatever.
Winnie one,
Oh,
where
fine.
she says, "I am not the sort of person to carry beautiful flowers and be an ornament to everyone." And I just, yes, yes.
I saw a Tumblr post of someone, like I'm still on Tumblr, but I saw someone talking about how the peculiar affliction of femme-embodied and women people, that sometimes when you suffer, you're also thinking this like triple consciousness of like, am I suffering aesthetically? Am I beautiful while in pain?
Yeah.
That you can't, so I think,
Yeah.
okay. But I want to talk about this poem, and if it's not too kinky, can I read your poem to you?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay. You, who are monumented as fist, as aftermath, as footnote, as rifle, as trope for gauze and gaping, as boxing gloves, as protest, as combative, as fetus sucked from a dysfunctional maternity ward, coming into the world stillborn, or born with your narrative hijacked by someone else to twist and turn and tame and titillate and tally, as the sum total of picking cotton at a plantation that does not even belong to your history, but in the twisting and turning and taming and titillating and tallying. All black history is established on a plantation or slave ship that conveniently drowns some biographies and saves others, where men were slaves who fought and made art, a history that made it into textbooks, and women were slaves who fought and made art, a history drowned in glass jars and museums. Now we rotate libraries upside down, retrieving from the margins lives connected to other lives, spilling the ones they say do not exist.
I want to read something, actually. Like, this word history keeps coming up. I know we have to close, but I actually have to read. I've been reading, grazing on, since we're grazing, on Ilse Wolf's work.
Yes.
And before we close, it's been coming up because when you were reading the Sistina and reading this now, I was just keep coming back to this.
Give it.
So I was reading one of Ilse Wolf's pamphlets that is about the Alabama cinema, which used to be on the corner of, I think, Pepper Street and Loop or something, if I'm not mistaken. And I just thought that this, when you talk about history being this big word and history, she says, history is a place where the alternative could be imagined, I think. Not as a way to nostalgically dwell on the past, but to explore projects of the off-modern. I like this line. You know what? Forget about it. It's okay.
Can you tell me why? Why it is that?
It kept coming up. It's okay. It's okay. I backtrack. Let's close it. It's going to be too long. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, all of this to say thank you for so many things. But I think the thing that I want to thank you the most is being a witness, which is a crunchy word for me, but being a kind of witness in this journey of becoming and unbecoming that we've been doing over the last 10 years, and also for being so incredibly bright in your own fierceness, in your own tenderness, in your own gentleness, in your own tiredness, in your own everything. No English can touch how privileged I feel writing at the same time as you do. So I love you, thank you.
Thank you. What are the I think the Gen Zs are, what is the...
Don't even ask me to do that because you're going to see silly things. Thank you so much.
My fingers can, but...
Thank you so much for everyone for being here and for also allowing us just to be a little bit naughty in 4 minutes over time. And thank you for your questions too. And enjoy the rest of the festival. Please buy books. Buy books.